All right, we're live.
Greetings, everybody. Billy O here, coming to you from Palm Desert, California. This is 4.2 of the Huns Oldcast. Spence McManes is our interviewee today. Spence, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Bill.
My pleasure. We'll get to your background and your player stuff in a minute, but today is World Mental Health Day, October 10th. 2022, and it seems like the awareness of mental health has changed just since February, the Olympics, to now hugely. And it's a matter close to my heart. And I was very impressed that Spence, published on the Huns chat pages that he was going to take a week off from training this summer to kind of get his head right. So I thought he was a perfect guest today, and it's supportive of some stuff I'm doing in my profession these days, where I'm trying to be an advocate for mental health with managers and executives. This is a neglected issue in our country, and it affects everybody. So, I have a story to tell. I know Spence has a story to tell, and I'm going to try to be doing some of these webcasts, podcasts, whatever they are, going forward on the topic of men's mental health. Men don't speak out about this enough. I do want to say this is brought to you by the Mare Company. I've had some technical difficulties today. I'm on my phone. Spence has helped me out with that. Harold Hoffman, sorry it cuts the Mare logo in half. It worked great on my computer, but my computer's not cooperating. You guys out there, Harold Hoffman sponsors the Huns every year. He's helped a lot of Huns get into houses. See Harold Hoffman at the Mare Company for all your housing needs. Spence, again, great to have you. This guy is a Yale grad, so he's smart. One of our slogans is no brain too small for Huns Rugby. I would imagine a Yale grad's got something on the ball. You've been with us, what, 2 seasons now?
Yes, sir. 2 seasons, going into my 3rd, I guess.
What attracted you to rugby? How'd you find the Huns?
Yeah, good question. Let's see. It was fall of 2019 when I decided to pick up rugby. I was 25 and I was exercising a bunch, but couldn't. I couldn't really find why I was exercising, right? So I was getting pretty anxious, and I say I had a quarter life crisis, and I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time. And I went with my roommate to one of his rugby practices, and I got hooked from there. So I played the second half of that season in the fall, and then moved to Austin March of 2020. So that was, not great timing, but found the Huns in October of 2020, right as the world, or at least Austin, was starting to open up.
Well, it was pretty good timing. We had a great year last year in sevens, and you were a part of that. Were you a back right from the beginning?
Yeah, I've been a back my whole career, or at least thus far.
Right,
Probably
you were a quarterback in college, right?
Yes, sir. Yep, quarterback in college, and I think wing is like the easiest spot for someone to start. So I've slowly progressed in from there, and we'll see where I end up this season.
You're a pretty big guy, right? How tall are you?
Yeah, 6'3" to 10.
Man, wings when I played were like 5'9", at least on the Huns, 5'9", 155. So I was 6'1", 210, and was a big flanker.
Yep.
Back then. So wings are getting big, and you're fast too. I'm sure you know your 40 time from college. What is it?
Ooh, let's go with the fastest 40 time I have recorded is probably like a 4.65. Like,
that's pretty fast.
Yeah, reasonably fast.
It's not NFL fast, but it's normal human being fast. It's fast enough. So
yeah,
you come to the Huns. It's like you must think that we do great in sevens every year. We did great in 15s that year. You played some 15s first side that year, didn't you?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I had a chance to play a couple of matches up on D1.
So you beat the Blacks probably in that match.
Yep.
And you don't need to say, sir, we're all brothers on the Huns, but I appreciate it. So we did great. We basically won the TRU that year, even though they weren't keeping score.
Right.
And then we go to nationals and beat a bunch of select side sevens teams, do great. What do you love about rugby and what do you love about the Huns?
Ooh, what I love about rugby from an actual like sport perspective is that you get to play both offense or attack and defense, and oftentimes in the same play and like within the same breath, sometimes in sevens. So I love
As
that.
a quarterback, I guess it's fun to hit people.
Right. Yeah. So I actually I should have been a linebacker in my football career. But now I get a chance to live that linebacker life. So the way I describe rugby to people that don't know the sport is you're both a running back and a linebacker, often times in the same play. So that's what I love about it. I also love that you can set up your teammates for success by your effort, of course, following someone carrying the ball, but also your basically like strategy or tactics and how you take contact. And if you leave your ball carrying arm open for a nice offload, like those are my favorite plays.
What line you run. You can open up something without even touching the ball by running a good line to confuse the defense. You can, it's great. I tell you what, if you want to play linebacker, you need to get into the scrum, play 6 or 7.
Yeah,
that's where, in my opinion, that's where the real action is. Those were positions that I played near the end of, after a couple of years, I grew into those.
Yeah, I believe that is in my future.
Good.
Flanker positions in my near future, which I'm all for.
Go for it.
What do I love about the Huns?
Yeah.
I mean, so many things. I think the biggest is the balance of taking like the intensity of the sport and how serious we take it, balanced with the fact that we're all friends, oftentimes best friends, and that there are bigger things at the end of the day than rugby. But that doesn't bleed into us not taking rugby seriously. So it's just a beautiful balance. And I've been on teams that don't take the sport serious enough, and then I've been on teams that are no fun at all because we're acting like we're an Olympic team that can't fail. Yeah, it's just a pleasure to be in the club.
From a culture standpoint, one of my talking points is always brotherhood. I feel like there's a real connection.
Yeah.
I'm friends with guys I met when I was 18 years old. I'm 65 when I started with the Huns. In fact, I'm on the phone right now planning what we're going to do for lunch Thursday, Friday of the reunion week. I'm going to a wedding reception for one of my teammates on Saturday afternoon and then rushing over to the field.
Nice.
And yeah, so, it's crazy. Do you feel that sense of brotherhood?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really something that I needed when I found the Huns, coming out of COVID. So like mid 2020, my girlfriend at the time and I had just broken up. And I knew almost no one in Austin. So I was pretty lonely and didn't have that much to do and just wasn't in a very good headspace. And so when I overheard that the Huns were starting practice again, I immediately was like, yes, that's exactly what I need. The physical aspect of it, but more importantly, the brotherhood aspect of it. And it's exceeded my expectations by far.
I was in a really dark time with a lot of those types of things when I stumbled across the Huns out at the UT intramural fields. And first thing I did, literally 1 minute, they stuck me in a scrum broke up, guy cut back, and I put a perfect form tackle kind of on him, knocked the wind out of him. And I thought I was in trouble. They asked me what I was doing on Saturday. You need somebody to play,
Yeah.
and I needed to hit people, and never had your talent for running with the ball. Love running with the ball, but man, I loved hitting people. All right, so new sport, smart guy, a lot of athletic talent, fitting in. I think those are all great things about the Huns. One of the reasons I was intrigued in talking to you, however, was, as I said, I'm doing a lot of mental health study and talking to groups these days because I had a mental health bottom a number of years ago that was pretty bad. I got severely burned out, went to a doctor because of some health things I was worried about. And he diagnosed me right there on the spot with high functioning depression, just a general practitioner. Gave me some meds, set me up with specialists, and I've been on a bit of a 7-8 year odyssey to learn more about mental health, managing my own mental health, helping others. And I've really become a student of this, and I've learned how much of an epidemic it is in our society. And so when you wrote to everybody, hey guys, I'm going to take a week off because I need to get my mental health right, and then the group responded to you very positively, I thought that was awesome, and it really stood out to me. So if you're comfortable talking about your quarter life,
Yeah.
I had a three-quarter life crisis. You had a quarter life crisis, and obviously now you're really more in touch with what you need to do to keep your mental health strong. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So the quarter life crisis is really what got me into rugby back in 2019. And then when this like mental health break, if you will, happened. So that was this summer, so summer of 2022. And for those that don't know, the 15 season ran through the beginning of 2022, and then you go right into 7. So it's like basically ends up being 8 months straight of rugby. Which
pretty intense too. Pretty intense.
Yeah, pretty intense. Yeah, absolutely. Depending on, some people take 15s like more intense, and then like the forwards, and then maybe play a little bit less in 7s or vice versa. But I take both of them seriously, just given my position, my role. So yeah, I think it was either a Tuesday or a Thursday practice, and I just wasn't feeling very good that day. And I was like, well, I want to go support my team, and I don't want to just lay on the couch all day, but I don't really want to practice. Like, I don't feel like I'm in the mood. I don't feel that intensity. And that's when it hit me. My whole life, it's never been a question whether you're going to go to practice. Like, practice is not optional growing up, right?
And coaches in football screaming at you to give 110% every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a place for that. Sure. I mean, if you're in high school and you've got a football game that weekend, and you're a starter, or you're trying to go play college, you don't miss a game or a practice if you can help it. But I realized, I was like, all I need to do is text Pat Coleman, our coach, and who's my age, and say like, hey, I'm not practicing today. So I showed up just in shorts, and I made sure not to bring my cleats, because I know that if you bring your cleats, you can easily get convinced to just throw them on. And I had probably 15 guys come up to me and say like, hey man, like, are you okay? Like, are you injured? Because I had a little turf toe or something like that. And I was like, nope, no injury, just taking a mental health day. And what I was surprised about, and what led to that club-wide text, was everyone was supportive. No one even made a joke about me being soft, or like,
no one called
whatever
you a pussy.
No one called me a pussy. No, which I absolutely expected. And I would have laughed off. I mean, it's like, yeah, whatever. But everyone was like, wow, good for you. Or some guys were like, man, I could really use a mental health day. One of the college guys, I looked at him and I was like, dude, go take your cleats off right now. You're one of the best players on the team. You've played probably for 2 years straight without an off season. You just came from like the national championship run in the college 7s. Go take your cleats off and relax. Like, you'll play better. you'll be happier, you'll be more recharged. You can't grind yourself into the dirt. So anyways, such a positive reaction from my team. And that's when I sent the message that was basically recapping that and talking about how special it was that you have a team that's fully supportive, and no one was like, man, we really need you to make sure you run those lines right and get some extra reps in running those plays. Everyone was like, sweet. So I left like an hour into practice and got to bed early and felt good.
Well, so contrast that to how I was raised.
Yeah.
You played hurt. You played hurt. I'm starting to get arthritis in my left ankle a little bit because I used to play on sprained ankles. You know, I'd crutches all week, play on Saturday, crutches all week, play on Saturday. I mean, I would not miss a minute. I would not miss a game. And, you know, I carry that into work. 70, 80 hours a week in impossible work situations, you know, team environments where people would not work together and were stabbing each other in the back. And I solved a lot of those things for a lot of years in my career at pretty great stress to myself. And then one time I couldn't do it anymore and I literally seized up. So I waited too long. I did the other end. You know, I was competing in 112-mile bike races to get rid of my stress.
And sounds like a stressful way to get rid of stress.
Oh God, it was glorious to ride 12 hours a week on my bike. I felt great.
Sure.
But the next day I'd be empty and nothing would be resolved. So, you know, I've been interested to follow this and I'd like your opinion. You know, in February, Simone Biles takes time off at the Olympics and is crucified by a lot of people in the media. A lot of other people supported her. And then all of a sudden, Michael Phelps starts speaking out. He does commercials now for, you know, online counseling. The captain of the Australian national rugby team just took the entire rugby championship off and was very well supported. And, you know, there's a lot of history of athletes, entertainers, executives committing suicide. I read a study recently that 1/3 of all Americans experience mental health problems sometime in their life, and 1/3 of business executives right now are dealing with some level of stress, depression, anxiety. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young men in America right now. And so there are very real world consequences to ignoring this and to not being comfortable talking about it. Hopefully today, every time I speak about this, I try to say that we're going to help others that are in need. We're going to try and reduce the stigma of mental health and talking about needing help and having a problem. And we're going to raise awareness. And that's what I'm hoping to have seen. I've seen this last year. I'm hoping continues, and I want to accomplish with talks like this. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I think that it's great that it's becoming something more people can talk about and are willing to talk about, and it's almost like it's becoming more like that vocabulary is now getting ingrained into people's brains so they can actually express how they feel. I think like I never would have thought that mental health was like a challenge for me in like high school and college, but it wasn't really talked about very much, right? And then in the 5 years I've been out of college, it's become more and more, and it's easier to actually articulate how you feel. And this is one way that I try and help with this cause is sharing your story, or hearing other stories allows you to feel the same thing and like recognize when that's happened. So I've shared my story in greater detail than I have here with a bunch of friends, and oftentimes like friends of friends, people I don't really know. And what that does is it gives them room, or like the space to say, oh, wow, I've been feeling anxious, or I've been feeling depressed, or I've had mental health challenges too. And I've gotten probably, because I used to use BetterHelp, which is one of those therapy apps. I've gotten probably 10 people onto that. And sometimes it's immediate and they say, oh my gosh, I needed this so bad. Thank you. Sometimes it's a week or two later. And sometimes it's like 3 months later. I've had people text me and be like, yo, what was that app that you used? And I'll send it to them. They get 2 free weeks or something. And yeah, so you just never know as long as you're willing to talk about it and be honest, like that authenticity goes way further than you think and makes people that maybe weren't comfortable talking about it comfortable.
I always thought depression was you lay in bed with the lights off and you pull the cover over your head, right?
Yeah.
My type of depression is I feel anxious, so I'm a hyper doer. I'm a hyper performer, and that doesn't relieve the underlying cause, and no amount of self-care, like exercise, was enough to fix it. It's important, but my whole value system was designed to burn me out, basically. Do more, never say no, accept every volunteer opportunity, coach, captain, treasurer, uniform guy out of the trunk of my car. Seriously, I overdid it my whole life. And I did that because I needed to overdo it to feel good enough. Really, to boil it down. And so what I think happens when you share your story is, man, here's a Yale educated guy, good job, successful athlete, and he struggles too. And the fact that you can listen and share your experience, strength, and hope, if you will, with somebody makes it much more relatable. And hopefully somebody will watch this that's struggling a little bit and doesn't want to reach out for risk of looking bad, and they will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly the goal. And like, there shouldn't be any shame in reaching out and talking about it. A lot of people feel like they are weighing on someone else, like they're putting their struggles on other people. But the truth is, most people just want to help, and they feel good when they listen to their good friends share challenges and can help them. I had an impromptu therapy session with a good friend on Friday just because something happened. He needed to talk about it. Very vulnerable 5-10 minute conversation. And he was like, wow, thank goodness we were together, or I would have been like spiraling down some rabbit hole on how terrible that was. And I was like, hey, I'm here to listen. We're good to go. So,
well, again, suicide's a big deal, and struggling in the darkness of something like this is a really big deal. And I read a study. If anybody once you start reading about this stuff, it's everywhere. You see it everywhere. I read a study by Deloitte. They did an international study in England, Australia, United States, a couple other countries, about depression in the workplace. We're not talking athletes. We're not talking entertainers. We're not talking necessarily even entrepreneurs, just rank and file workers and the C-suite, CEO, CFO, COO. And they found anxiety, depression, overwork, especially during the Great Resignation, a huge problem. Documented it with graphs, flowcharts. If you're a graph guy, they got 10, 12 graphs in that article. Go look at it. But what I took away from it, in addition to that was really interesting, is that young executive owned and managed companies, the employees think the boss is open to mental health issues and discussion and hopeful there, 75%. Boomer oriented companies, 50% or less. Mm-hmm. And so that's encouraging to me. It means younger people are getting it, but also to the boomers out there, it means if you're running a company, you better get wise on this, because you're going to get out competed for employees by these other outfits that are taking care of their mental health better. This is becoming a legit topic in all areas of society very quickly.
Yeah, I actually have an interesting story on that. I was applying for a new job in May of 2021, and I had one interview with my hiring manager. I had like two or three more, and then a final round back with my hiring manager. And in that conversation, we were just having a really authentic discussion, and mental health did come up. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I've been struggling with it for longer than I expected to. And sometimes I'm just kind of I'm getting my butt kicked by it. And he was like, same thing happened to me 4 years ago, same type of like breakup thing, hurt more than expected. He sent me, this is before he hired me. This is before I had gotten an
Nice.
offer, like kind of a ridiculous thing that I even was willing to be this vulnerable, but I was. And he sent me a bunch of stuff, books, YouTube videos, podcasts. And one of those podcasts I have probably sent to 10, 15 people, including like 5 or 6 Huns, on basically
Nice.
why breakups hurt guys and like how it hurts them different than women and yada, yada, yada. But I mean, I'm like forever indebted to my work manager for how he helped me navigate that difficult time in my life through a transition. And I mean, if I ever needed to talk to him about almost anything, I could. I mean, literally anything. I've talked to him about everything. So
I
that's
took
the
a year off.
workplace of now.
I took a year off because I don't have just situational depression, which it sounds like is what you're describing. There are situational depression issues. I have a chemical depression, runs in my family. I look back now, my mother, my brother, all kinds of depression in the family. So I got medical support. That's counseling, that's medicine. I needed a lower stress in my life because that triggers depression. So I took a year to find a better job, a different job, same industry, but less stress was my primary goal, not money, not challenge, right? And when it got down to the final interviews, I was super open with my bosses. I have 2 bosses. And they're both, hey, great, we're very into that. We'd love to have you, if you want, share your experience with other people. We're really trying to build a network on that. I had a mental health thing come up here where I was threatened by a customer. And we can't fire our customers. We have them forever. It's not like they come in one time and they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me at a really bad time. I was having some hard issues that needed to be fixed. I was emotionally not very strong in that moment. And I, not gonna lie, freaked out a bit. I wrote my bosses, this is what happened. This is the truth. I'm taking a step back to get my heart issues and my mental health together. I need y'all to step in and do this, 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 and this. And they said, great, thanks for being candid, letting us help you. And they jumped in and took care of everything. My hope is that is the new American workplace, just like you saying I needed to take a couple days off is the new athletic workplace. And if Michael Hooper, the captain of Australia, their talisman number 7, can take an important tournament off, and that is positively enforced, I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all in the name, in my mind, it's all in the name of like peak performance. So getting either you yourself to a place where you can perform at work, perform on the field, on the pitch, or if you're a coach, making sure that your team's ready to perform. And if one of those things is them not practicing for a day, that's kind of a no-brainer, right?
Or maybe they're struggling to a degree that you weren't aware of, and they freak you out with what they're saying. And you listen, and you're like, hey man, you know what? I'm not a doctor. I'm really happy to listen. I'll support you any way I can, but you might want to think about this level of professional support, because it really sounds like you might need some help. I mean, that might be the difference right there, listening and just making a suggestion to somebody killing themselves. And again, I can't emphasize that enough. It happens in our sport. It happens in other sports. It happens in business far more than we know. Nowadays, you can't turn around and read the news. Miss America, a former Miss America, jumped out of her window in Manhattan a couple of weeks ago. A lawyer, an MBA, very successful in business, Miss America, Ivy League grad, and everybody thought she was the happiest person they knew. No one had an idea, and she felt so much pressure to perform that she couldn't let her mask down. That's really, in my view, also a part of what we're discussing. I agree with performance and all that business, but to me, this is a very human issue. Yep. And we're seeing suicides among young people in high school and college because of quote unquote pressure. What pressure really is there on a high school kid and on a college kid that we haven't created for them? I mean, that should be the time of their lives.
Yep. That's a great question. So many different ways to answer it, right? Like so often what you're in feels to be so much more intense than it actually is. And then if you take a step back or look back a couple of years, like I probably put too much pressure on myself in college on the football field. And looking back, like it's not nearly, the lights aren't as bright as they were when you were on the pitch, right? And I always try and convey that. I've got 3 younger siblings, so I've always tried to tell them that. I've got a younger sister playing college soccer right now, and I'm like, in 5 years, how do you want to look back and have reacted to and responded to that challenge that you're going through right now? Right. And sometimes I give like harsher feedback or like perspective changing, if you will. But yeah, when it comes down to it, you shouldn't let the lights be brighter than they need to be. But it happens. I mean, it happens to everyone, really.
Dude, I used to coach youth sports, and I really preferred the rec league environment where it wasn't so important winning and losing and everybody played. Then there'd be a club season. And if a kid was good at a club sport, coaches were trying to make him quit all other sports and focus only on whatever.
Yep.
And then it's like, well, you have to work harder, and you're in, a sophomore in high school, so you can get a scholarship. And it took all the fun out of it. It made it a job, and SATs and good college and college expenses and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, one of the ironies of the Great Resignation is people, again, look at this Deloitte study. People are going, hey, wait a minute, I need to take better care of my mental health. I'm not ready to run back to a crazy job that grinds me into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
This is a paradigm shift amongst our population. And I think a good one. Again, Simone Biles was vilified 6 months later. I think that if she did that right now, there would be a completely different response from that group. I think the ones that supported her would still support her, but it's a big deal.
Yeah. She kind of paved the way. She took a bunch of the beatings so that others maybe don't have to.
And did it with a lot of class.
Yeah. No, I thought she handled it really well. I can't remember all the minute details, but in my head, she handled it great, as well as she could have.
She did interviews and stuff during it. She said, look, I'm not mentally right to jump, flip, and do 87 twists at full speed and be safe. I'm just not there.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, wow, great. I mean, good for you. And again, I think it's a paradigm shift. All right, we're running out of time unless you have the unlimited Zoom. I do not. I'm always on.
I've got the unlimited. Yeah.
Well, good. Is there anything else? Like, I came to you saying I wanted to talk about the Huns a little bit, but I also wanted to talk about mental health. And I think you're just an intriguing character. Is there anything else you want to say, just extemporaneously on the Huns or on this mental health awareness stuff?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you give me a platform, I can fill the space. On the mental health stuff and like on the putting too much pressure, I think one of the culprits of that is social media. Um, it's and that's because social media is not the truth. It's the highlights of individuals' lives, including mine. I mean, I do the same thing, but you can get down this rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, the grass is greener over there, but it's really not. Like everyone's a person, everyone has struggles. The filters on Instagram and on TikTok and Facebook or whatever can definitely put undue pressure on individuals, and particularly younger folks. I mean, I've seen it with my younger sisters. Um, there are obviously benefits to it, but there are a lot of downsides to it too, and that's basically unrealistic expectations, whether it's on the field or what you're doing or how you look, whatever it is. So that's something that kind of concerns me. I don't know what to do about it, but
Like if I'm not careful, I'm addicted to Facebook. I like posting, I like seeing like, same thing with LinkedIn lately. And there's some good things about it too. I mean, I've stopped arguing on Facebook. That was not good for my mental health.
yep.
Um, I have my phone at work on do not disturb. It doesn't even ring anymore. I don't have my work email or anybody other than the big boss knowing my cell phone number. I mean, when I'm not at my desk working, I'm not working. And that's the opposite of how I used to be. I used to be engaged all the time.
Yeah.
And I've taken up meditation for years now, and I'm practicing it more and more. I make sure I eat better. I get better sleep. There are so many things from a self-care standpoint that are important.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I can't emphasize enough that sometimes there's a need for medical help. Like, let's talk about a different level of mental illness and anxiety, depression. Like if you're bipolar, I mean, seriously, there are mental health conditions that people deal with every day, sometimes undiagnosed, that the end result of all that is a dead end, unfortunately. And it can come in the form of suicide, like with a gun or pills or something. It can come in the form of self-destructive behavior like alcoholism,
Mm-hmm.
or daredevil sports. In addition to rugby, I did all kinds of crazy sports when I was a kid. And I talked to my counselor and she's like, well, you weren't trying to kill yourself with a gun, but you were trying to figure out other ways to do it.
Yeah.
And, she's right. And so I can't emphasize enough that getting help, and that could be just talking to somebody, but it could also be going to doctors. It could also be getting professional counseling.
Yeah.
Anybody that thinks that's wrong or bad or weak or cheating or whatever the ego wants to say about it. Like my father was a John Wayne type father. There's no way I was having this conversation with him when I was 20 to 25. It wasn't going to happen. So I want to encourage people to, first of all, if you're watching this and you're in trouble and you don't know who to call or what to do, call me, 858-886-6655. I'll take your call. I think there's other Huns that would take your call.
Oh, absolutely.
988 is a suicide hotline number, just like 911 now. And they have huge spiking in people calling them because people are reaching out for help. We talked about these online services. There's a lot of things to do. And I just wanted to, there was a guy that won some lightweight, flyweight MMA fight recently. He's a Scottish guy, Irish guy, something like that.
Yep.
And he goes, I want to dedicate this one to my friend that committed suicide yesterday. And I would just like to say, I never saw it coming and I wish he'd talk to me. I'd rather have him crying on my shoulder right now than reading about him or getting a text that he committed suicide. Don't talk to somebody, and don't let it go to the end. Talk to somebody. And I feel that way too, man. I mean, the Huns saved my life. I've heard that from other people, that they found the Huns at the time when they needed them. And dude, if that's true, call us.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes you don't really know what you need. So you just got to find someone to chat with. I mean, one of my friend's girlfriends I started talking to at a wedding a couple weeks ago. And all of a sudden we get into the mental health conversation and she was like, "Oh, no, I'm very depressed." And I was like, "Oh, do you like have a therapist or anything like that?" And she was like, "Nope, my boyfriend's my therapist." But she was like, "I'm weighing on him. I know this is weighing on him." And I was like, "Well, here's a link to BetterHelp and you can find someone to talk to and you won't feel like you're weighing on your boyfriend, right? And you'll be able to maybe have more boundaries,
You know,
if you will." And
one of my
that was
kids has some mental health things going on, biological. And so we talk a lot. We talk probably 5 times a week about what's going on. Sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's not. And she was dumping all this on her husband for a while. I was like, honey, my
right.
God, that guy's got enough to deal with already, just being a husband and dad. And you don't want to keep showing him you're crazy all the time. Call me instead. Talk to your counselor instead.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
great advice right there that you gave. That you know, you relationships, it's tough to be a caregiver and a partner.
Yes. Like talk to anyone and then you'll find they'll help you find the right one. Right. So talk to anybody to get the conversation started and let them help you find someone maybe more sustainable, right? So you don't have to be a caregiver and a partner. Something,
That lets
yeah.
that go ahead. That lets the steam out of the balloon. Talking lowers
Oh
the
yeah.
pressure, but it doesn't lower the pressure. Sometimes it doesn't lower the pressure forever.
Mhm.
And that's when outside help and doctors and some other things, you know, what I've found, this doesn't apply to everybody, but a lot of times depression and anxiety are results of situational things throughout our whole lives, childhood trauma, you know, childhood rejection, and trauma can come in the ways of verbal, physical, sexual, environmental,
Mhm.
racial. There's so many things that can wind one up. And then the synapses in our brain are used to constant fight or flight our entire lives. So that becomes kind of our hard wiring. And that's again where professional help and some of these other things can come in to try to unwind all that.
Mhm.
You know, it's a really deep issue. I mean, there are classes. I just took a class called mental health first aid. It's like CPR training for mental health issues,
Yeah.
so that you can talk to somebody and ask the right questions, and you know, listen, and you know, kind of learn where to maybe redirect them if they need more help. And this is the type of thing that's becoming more common in workplaces, so that there's a bunch of people in your company that can be there when needed. Um, it's a sensitive issue and it's a really important issue, whether it's a girlfriend, which, man, I know that I had a tough time getting over breakups over the
Mhm.
years, or it's something bigger than that, and that's a piece of the puzzle. You know, if somebody is stuck for 4 years crying about a breakup, it might be a bigger issue than just the breakup.
Yeah.
You know, it might be.
Yeah.
And that's not a, I mean, that's not a bad thing that you need help, uh,
Yeah.
that it's a symptom of something, you know, not a cause of something. And one of the things that concerns me, um, is that we're, you know, tough guys that are actually really sensitive that play rugby, and we drink a lot. So all the physical contact and bravado and alcohol can mask an awful lot of stuff for a long time.
Yep.
And it works until one day it doesn't. And that's, I think, something that we all need to be aware of and be there for each other.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I can talk about for a long time. I like to say right now I'm sober curious. So I'm not sober and I'm not drinking. I mean, I drank plenty this weekend. But I'm curious about how I can like remain more sober, if you will. because of course I want to have a beer or two or three after we play the Blacks at Nixon, right? Like I live for that. But what I don't want to have is 10. And that actually came about. I was having like an anxiety episode, if you will, situational based in like May of 2022. Just drank too much basically at a wedding. Nothing terrible happened, but I was just feeling in the dumps. And so I wrote down on the left side of a piece of paper things that make me feel bad, and on the right side things that make me feel good. And I was like, obviously alcohol is the root of all of everything that makes me feel bad.
By the way, that's
alcohol.
a pretty old school approach there.
Yep.
That's called the Ben Franklin. That is an old school approach right there, man.
It was, you know what, simple, really effective for me. And I was like, okay, so what makes me unhappy? Like alcohol, not getting enough sleep, this, that. And I was like, which of these can I control? Literally all of them. Which of them am I actually going to change? Almost all of them. And then what do I love? Getting enough sleep, rugby, reading, having a hobby outside of work, and rugby, something else. So I encourage anyone to do that. Yeah, alcohol is a problem.
If you're prone to depression in particular, alcohol is a real problem. It's been a real problem for me.
Yep.
I don't drink. I've been sober for a while. I got some specific ongoing fellowship help for that, nice. Which has helped me in a lot of other areas of my life. And man, I got DUIs back in the day when I was a Hun. Huns had to come bail me out on the way back from A&M one time, and so there are times when the rugby ethos didn't work for me anymore. And it was grueling. It was just awful, because rugby at the time meant more to me and my success in rugby, even after a major injury where I couldn't quite play at the same level, but I kept playing. It meant more to me than anything else in my life. It gave me that sense of release and freedom and brotherhood and camaraderie and everything that nothing else did. And alcohol was a big part of that. And so I relate to what you're talking about. And you know what, man? There are guys in rugby that probably shouldn't be drinking as much as they are. And hopefully they'll reach out and ask for help when the time comes. Drinking is a big part of our culture's way to deal with stress, anxiety, and depression. It's huge. And you can't turn around. You talk about social media. I mean, billboards, social media ads, TV ads, Facebook ads. I mean, they're inventing new kinds of drinks, booze. I mean, it's just, It's crazy. And, everyone's handsome, everyone's having fun, everyone's hot, everyone's happy in all those ads.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't always work out that way.
Never does. Yeah, no, I'm looking at one thing I'm looking into is kava, which I know is kind of a rugby drink, if you will. But when I'm at the bar, like I want to be out of the bar and be social, but I don't want to drink alcohol. So sometimes I'll get a soda water. I mean, I'm still drinking, don't get me wrong, but there's a difference between 4 to 5 and then 10 to 12, especially if you're dehydrated.
There is, but you're talking about something different. What I'm talking about is, if you're truly an alcoholic level of problem with alcohol, once you start, you can't stop. And it gets in the way of everything. And that is a release that works for a while, just like all the other things we're talking about, and it doesn't work anymore. And we're talking about this not in the context that drinking is bad, because it's not. We're talking about this in the context that sometimes if you have depression, that's not a good solution, and it makes depression worse. And I don't want anybody to think we're saying drinking is bad. Drinking, a lot of people are fine with it. It's a big part of rugby culture. That's cool. But if you're struggling with depression and stuff, probably not so cool. It's not a good medicine for it's a downer. It's not a good medicine for being depressed.
Yep. I think a 3-mile jog is much better than alcohol, in my opinion.
A 3-mile jog is, but this is just something I'm trying with these things to help others. So if someone has a problem on this, we're open to help with this talk. Reduce stigma. So if somebody comes to you or says they need help, chill, don't judge. I mean, this person is trusting you with something really sensitive, and raise awareness. We want more people, especially in our brotherhood here, but I'm going to try and do these podcasts and see if I can't get other people to come talk. Is to raise awareness. I mean, this is an important thing that is changing rapidly in our society. If Michael Phelps, who's worth like $80 million and has a bazillion gold medals, can sit and talk about mental health very publicly, granted it's for a for-profit website, but still,
sure.
He's out there advocating for mental health. I think that's just courageous. I bet you if I asked him which was harder, winning 20 gold medals or however many he has and getting a handle on his depression, I bet you he would say getting a handle on his depression was harder.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
So what else, man? I mean, this has been a great talk. We're at it for something like 50 minutes now.
Yeah.
You got any other thoughts that you want to share before we close?
I've pretty much shared everything. I mean, I'm so grateful for the Huns, for the community that it's provided to me, the physical and mental outlet, for all the friends and colleagues, lifelong friends that it's given me. And I look forward to my continued future with the Huns and bringing in more and more guys and helping them not only on the pitch but off the pitch, like we talked about today. And thank you for having me on. I've had a blast.
Are you looking forward to this year with Austin Willis's director of rugby, Coach Lack, and some of the players we have coming back and we're recruiting?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. I think Willis is the perfect man for the job. I actually don't know the new coach. I haven't had a chance to meet him quite yet. I'll meet him tomorrow. But from my conversations with Willis, I 100% support it and so excited for it. And always fun to see who comes back. I know we got some of the college guys back, some of the scholarship guys. I just saw a little sneak preview of the calendar. So it looks like we got 8 weeks till the Blacks at home.
Willis has a lot of energy. Are you coming to the 50th reunion bash on November 5th?
I'll have to check my calendar. I can't lie and say yes for sure, but if I'm in town, I'll be there.
I hope you are. 50, we're going to have some guys from the very first Huns team there. 50 years is a big deal. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. There'll be stuff all Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And for anybody watching this that hasn't checked their calendar and circled that date, the big party's November 5th. That's a Saturday out at Nixon Lane. Registration and cocktails at 6. The party itself kicks off at 7.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll get back to you. I'll text you.
All right, man. Look, I really appreciate you making time to do this. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to meet you in person. I'll be in town. And if I don't see you at the 50th itself, maybe I'll meet you after practice that week.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds great. I'll definitely make it to at least some of the festivities, but looking forward to meeting you too. And best of luck continuing this, the podcast and mental health focus. It's awesome.
Thanks, man. We'll see how it goes. Take care.
Yes, sir. See you, Bill.
See you.